Hey there, folks, and welcome out to the Single Player Podcast. I'm your one and only host, I am 16-bit, and I got a good show for this week because we're going to be talking about the UK's findings on the Microsoft-Activision acquisition. Final Fantasy XIV is accused of cultural appropriation. Miyamoto hints at the next Mario game, and more. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and I'll be with you in a bit. Alright folks, we're back, and now it's time to start the show with my favorite segment, your favorite segment, everyone in the world's favorite segment. It's time for the Gaming Forecast. So let's see what's coming out between the week of February 26th to March 4th. Alright, on February 28th, you have 4 games coming out. Dungeons of Aether for Windows, Destiny 2 Lightfall for Windows, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X, Scars Above for Windows, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X, and Void Terrarium 2 making its Western debut on Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4. Then on March 1st, you have Bendy and the Dark Revival for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X, and Brock the Investigator for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and Xbox One. Then on March 2nd, you have Rune Factory 3 Special releasing only in Japan on Nintendo Switch. And on March 3rd, you have just 2 games coming out. Void Terrarium 2 releasing in Europe and Oceania for Nintendo Switch and PlayStation 4. And Wolong Fallen Dynasty for Windows, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X. And that was your gaming forecast. I'm gonna be quite frank with you guys, there's nothing here that really catches my interest, but if there is for you, then please let me know down below. And remember, if you like any of the music in this week's episode, links are in the description. With that being said, let's move on to our first topic. Okay, and so for our first story, we've got to talk about the Microsoft-Activision acquisition because we've got an update on the whole thing. Recently, the UK's Competition and Markets Authority spoke with about 6 third parties on the merger, and what came out of it is very, very interesting. Apparently, half of the companies don't actually like it. They believe that it would have a negative impact on competition, saying, and I quote, including by affording Microsoft the ability and incentive to foreclose potential and existing rivals in the console buy-to-play, console multi-game subscription, and cloud gaming spaces. Now, apparently 2 of the companies weren't really concerned about it, but the other one of them said that they felt it was too early to determine the impact on the deal. Now, none of the identities of the third parties have actually been disclosed. And you know what? This is probably for the best because then Microsoft can't retaliate against them. I mean, think about it like this. Let's say, for example, you're a publisher. You put a third-party publisher. You put games on both the Sony and Microsoft platforms. You don't want Microsoft to retaliate against you because you said, hey, I don't really like this deal. Now, this inquiry was actually part of an even bigger investigation that the CMA had been doing into this entire acquisition. And that thing took them 5 months. And apparently last week, they actually revealed their findings. I didn't even know about this, so that's why I didn't really cover it. But apparently, according to them, they found that the deal would reduce competition, result in higher prices, fewer choices, and less innovation for UK gamers. They also feel that Call of Duty and other franchises are important to the growth of cloud streaming and that Microsoft could remove competition by making these games exclusive to its cloud offerings. So, yeah, you know what? I think that this is what we're seeing here is a taste of what's to come. Because remember, this is just the UK. We still have the EU is going to be holding a hearing. Actually, they already did. By the time that this episode airs, the hearing has already happened because it's supposed to be happening on the 21st. But they're going to be doing a hearing on that. And then you have the FTC in the US. They've already filed a lawsuit against Microsoft for this. So, yeah, other countries have already approved it. I know Brazil, Saudi Arabia, they've all approved it. But the decision on this entire thing might actually come down to the US, the EU, and the UK. And if all three of them do not approve of this, then, yeah, it's not going to go through. So, anyway, with that being said, let's move on to our next story. Alright, and next up, we've got to talk about Super Smash Bros. No, not Ultimate. Instead, the original Super Smash Bros. From 1999 for the Nintendo 64. Now, why are we talking about this? Well, you see, back when it was about to come out, Nintendo decided to hold a special promotional event in Las Vegas they called SlamFest 99, in which Mario, Yoshi, Donkey Kong, and Pikachu all fought against each other in a boxing ring. Now, when I say that they fought, I mean people in suits, but not any suits. We're talking the exact same suits that were used in the Smash Brothers commercial. It was dubbed the Match of the Millennium by Nintendo on the official site. By the way, Nintendo, nice foreshadowing there. And apparently, not only was it done in front of a live audience, but it was even broadcasted through the internet. Now, unfortunately, it appears that a lot of the footage from this event is just gone. No one's been able to find any evidence of it other than the fact that we know it exists. Well, that is until recently, when a Reddit user going by the name Bozo SSB posted a whole bunch of photos from the event. Yeah. Now, the photos, of course, were taken by Ed Espinoza. And we don't know exactly how the hell this person got their hands on them, but the fact that they did and they put it out for us to see is pretty miraculous in my opinion. Folks, let me tell you something. I know they say that the internet is forever, but even that has its limits because unfortunately the internet, the way it is, stuff gets deleted and nobody backs it up. Stuff gets stored on a server and we never hear from it ever again. So it's pretty miraculous whenever anything like this comes to light. There are some gaming shows from the early years of the internet that are just gone. Like, for example, I was reading an old gaming magazine and I came across an ad for something called Video Game Slams. Apparently, it was a public access gaming show that was actually broadcast onto the internet. Unfortunately, you can't find anything from this show. Simply put, it was just mentioned in a magazine and that's it. That's the only evidence that I know it existed. Same thing with the PlayStation Underground Radio Network. Yeah, apparently, according to one of their issues, 3.1, they actually mentioned something called the PlayStation Underground Radio Network and how they have an interactive web broadcast weekly and all this kind of stuff. Yet, I have been unable to find any episodes of this thing. All I know that about it exists comes from this one issue of PlayStation Underground. So it's one of those things where I think we desperately need to archive as much as we possibly can when it comes to gaming culture. Anyway, guys, I'm going to take a short break and we'll be right back after this.
Nintendo All-Star がゲームキューブで大乱闘。新しい技、新しいキャラクター、新しいアイテム、逆転に次ぐ大逆転。バトルの数だけドラマがある。任天堂ゲームキューブ大乱闘スマッシュブラザーズデラックス。ゲームキューブ。
All right, folks, we're back, and first up in our next round of stories, we've got to talk about Final Fantasy XIV. No, not because there's any news about the game or any upcoming expansions. Instead, we've got to talk about cultural appropriation. That's right. Apparently, the game is being accused of appropriating culture from the Saami people. Apparently, the Saami Council has officially sent a letter to Square Enix demanding they immediately remove the far northern attire from Final Fantasy XIV. They're not saying it's inappropriate or anything like that, but they are claiming that it is their cultural property and that Square Enix has infringed on their rights. They released a statement saying, and I quote, "It is the position of the Saami that their collective and individual culture, including aesthetic elements, music, language, stories, histories, and other traditional cultural expressions are property that belong to the Saami." Now, they're claiming that their cultural property rights are protected under intellectual property laws, and their evidence of this comes from an agreement they had with Walt Disney Animation Studios about any depictions of Saami culture within their movies. Now, the thing about this is that apparently this is new. This is from around 2019, and it mostly involves Frozen 2. Now, it's fine if they have an agreement with Disney, but the problem is they're trying to claim that this extends to other parties, and I'm not really sure, because if you actually read the document, it doesn't really mention any other parties. It just specifically says that it's between Walt Disney Animation Studios and the Saami people. And that's it. So I think their claims that this is legally protected is rocky at best. Look, I get that it's their culture, but I'm not sure if you can actually legally copyright an entire culture. Remember, you're talking about something that is hundreds, possibly even thousands of years old. And those that established said culture have been gone for God knows how long. So I'm really not sure if anything like this could actually stand up in court. There's also the problem that this could lead to absolute chaos in the legal system. Basically, because you have to understand something, okay? Human history is a story of people borrowing ideas and cultures from each other, okay? You have so many cultures that have borrowed from other cultures who have borrowed from others and others, and it just keeps going and going and going, okay? I'm not sure how far you can go with this, and eventually you would just end up with everyone suing everybody. It would be like, remember that one episode of South Park, I think it was Sexual Harassment Panda, where everyone was suing everyone? That's what it would be. You know, everyone would be suing everyone because everyone has borrowed from each other. It would be nearly impossible to figure out who actually borrowed from who and who infringed upon each other. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things that I just think is so ridiculous that it would just be pure chaos. You know, I think a great example of this is, I'm sure many of you have heard and even played the game Ghost of Tsushima. Okay, unfortunately I haven't, but I've heard a lot of great things about it, and I'm kind of tempted to play it. And the thing is that it's actually based on a real location called Tsushima Island, and it's set during the first Mongol invasion of Japan, so around the 1200s or so. And the developers went all out trying to capture and embrace the culture of Tsushima Island at that time. And you had a bunch of people accusing it of cultural appropriation because it was a game set in Japan, but it was done by a Western studio. But the thing is, the people of Tsushima were completely honored by the game. So much so that they even bestowed upon the developers the title of tourism ambassadors to the island of Tsushima as a thank you for boosting tourism to the island. So the way I see it is this: if someone embraces and respects your culture, you should be humble about it. Don't be a dick. Just be humble about the fact that someone, anyone, regardless of what their race or their nationality is, embraces your culture and shows it the respect that it deserves. So anyway, with that being said, let's move on to our next story. Alright, next up, we've got to talk about Hogwarts Legacy because it's been banned again, this time from Games Done Quick. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Recently, GDQ put up their submissions guidelines, and they listed their disallowed games, and apparently the entire Harry Potter series is banned, including Hogwarts Legacy. Yeah. Now, my first reaction to this was, Games Done Quick is still around? Seriously? Like, honestly, I thought that kind of went away years ago. Like, I'm surprised anyone is still watching them anymore. But, yeah, apparently they're still around. They're still doing stuff. And they've decided to ban Harry Potter games, including Hogwarts Legacy. Now, obviously, this is because of the recent push to boycott the game. But what got me is the fact that they banned the entire series. So not just Hogwarts Legacy, but all past Harry Potter games. So, for example, if you want to do a GDQ of, like, I don't know, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone for, like, the PS1, you can't do it anymore. Apparently, it's now banned. And you know what? Look, okay, I understand disagreeing with J.K. Rowling and not wanting to buy the game, but I think it's a bit ridiculous to just outright ban it from any charity streams or anything like that. Like, that's just ridiculous. Like, okay, you don't agree with J.K. Rowling, but here's the thing. You're using her game to raise money for the charities you want to support. Wouldn't that make more sense? Like, stick it to J.K. Rowling by raising money for, like, a trans charity or something like that using Hogwarts Legacy? Like, wouldn't that be, like, far better? You're sticking it to J.K. Rowling by doing that, but apparently not, according to the people behind GDQ. Folks, here's the thing, okay? I think that this whole thing is a bit ridiculous, okay? If people want to play the game, fine. Just let them play it. Let them have fun with it. If you don't want to play it, that's fine too. That's really how it should be. But people get so uppity about this stuff that it's just kind of ridiculous. And by the way, I was looking at the list of other games on here, and some of them I agree with, but some of them I'm just, like, completely, like, what the fuck? Like, for example, okay, I understand, like, why Honey Pop and Natsuhiro High School are listed on here, because they're a little bit more lewd. But God of War 2005 is banned. Not God of War 2, or God of War 3, or Chains of Olympus, or Ghost of Sparta, or Ascension. But the original God of War is banned. Okay. Ion Fury is banned for some reason. Frog Fractions, Five Nights at Freddy's, the entire series, Barkley Shut Up and Jam Gaiden, like, Air Control. Why? Like, why? Rocco's Quest, which I've never even heard of. Why are these banned? I don't get it. Like, oh boy. You know what? It's just all so tiresome. It really fucking is. So you know what? I'm surprised that GDQ is even still going on with these days. But apparently, yeah, they've decided to. They're still going on, and they decided to ban all Harry Potter games. So, you know what? It is what it is. It's not going to stop people from buying the game, and it sure as hell is not going to stop J.K. Rowling from making money off of it. So, to me, it's just a pointless virtue signal. Anyway, let's move on to our next story. All right, and next up, we've got to talk about Nintendo, because it appears that Saudi Arabia has become their biggest outside investor after increasing its stake in the company. That's right. Apparently, according to the Saudi Arabia Kingdom's Public Investment Fund, they now hold an 8.26% stock of Nintendo. Now, apparently, they first acquired stock in the company back in May of last year at a total of 5.1%, and they've steadily increased that. Back in January, it was raised to 6.7%, and then a couple weeks ago, it was 7.8%, and now they've raised it again. So, yeah, it seems like they're increasing their ownership of Nintendo. Now, this does seem, at first, very worrisome. However, I do actually have some faith in Nintendo that they're not going to be taken over completely, because many years ago, I think I covered this on the show. I don't know what episode. You're gonna have to find it, but what happened was, around the time that China started increasing its investment into other companies like Activision Blizzard and Epic Games, and they purchased Riot Games, at an investors meeting, there was an investor asked, a couple of them asked about the possibility of a hostile takeover, and Nintendo said that they do have measures in place to prevent a hostile takeover. So I actually do believe that Nintendo is going to, if it ever comes to pass, if someone tries to take over the company, Nintendo will prevent it from happening. Now, obviously, I don't think Saudi is really trying to take over Nintendo. It's not like China. But it is apparent that they are trying to raise their stake in video games. After all, they own like 96-97% of SNK. And apparently this is to make the Saudi economy less reliant on proceeds from oil. And I can understand that, considering just how high the price of oil has become within the last couple of months. Here's the thing about Nintendo, okay? They're like, when it comes to hardware and internet infrastructure, they're behind, but when it comes to business, they're really good at it. You know, there's a reason why when it comes to the console business, Nintendo has been able to outlive Atari and Sega. And it's because they're really good at business. They're not really that great on everything else, well, except for gameplay. Their games are fantastic, but when it comes to hardware and internet infrastructure, they're shit. But when it comes, okay, not entirely shit, but you know what I mean. They're not that great at it. But when it comes to the business side of things, they know what the fuck they're doing. So I don't doubt them on that, and I generally do believe that if push comes to shove, Nintendo will be able to outperform a hostile takeover. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. I don't think that's gonna happen with Saudi Arabia, but if it ever does happen, I think Nintendo will be able to dodge it. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna take a short break. We'll be right back after this.
Final Fantasy XIV.
All right, folks, and we're back. And first up in our last round of stories, we've got to talk about Shigeru Miyamoto. So recently, he was interviewed by IGN, mostly talking about Super Nintendo World. And at one point, they actually asked him about why hasn't there been a Mario game around the same time as the theme park and the movie. And Miyamoto's response to this was, we're always working on Mario, so when we got to a time where we can share that information, we'll certainly do so. So basically, he outright confirms that there is a new Mario game, but the thing is, that's kind of expected. When isn't Nintendo working on a Mario game? Of course, I think in this case, he's talking about, you know, the next mainline game, you know, the follow-up to Odyssey. Which it's like, after that, where the hell do you take the series? Because, like, here's the thing. The joke has always been that once you've taken your character to outer space, that's it. You've officially run out of ideas. But, you know, Mario's already done that twice, and he's still going. So it's like, because, you know, you had 3D World, and then you had Odyssey, which I actually quite like the idea of Odyssey going around the world. And my only guess would be time travel. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, they already did that. Yes, you are correct. They did do it with Mario's Time Machine. But Mario's Time Machine was absolute garbage. It had an interesting premise, just shit execution. So, I could see, like, time travel working. Like, you imagine that Mario going back to, like, prehistoric times. Well, technically, he kind of did an Odyssey, but you know what I mean? Like, going full hog with it, you know. Doing prehistoric times, you know, Wild West, Roman, Egyptian, pirates. Like, there's a lot, I think, that could work there. You know, actually make it into a fun platformer, not a shitty point-and-click adventure. So, but who knows? You never know what's going to come out of the mind of Shigeru Miyamoto. The dude will basically blindside you with stuff you never even considered into gaming. So, anyway, with that being said, let's move on to our next story. All right, and next up, we've got to talk about Lego. Yes, Lego. So I'm sure you all know that Nintendo and Lego have been working together when it comes to Mario stuff, which I here's the thing. I'm not really a Lego fan. I'm more of a scale model guy. You know what I mean? But I have to say, the Lego stuff that they've been doing actually is pretty neat. And it appears that through some various leaks, Zelda is up on the chopping block. That's right. Apparently, a couple of Zelda Lego sets, or at least a bunch of prototype sets, have been leaked onto the internet. Now, usually when stuff like this supposedly leaks, it's usually complete bullshit. But here's the thing, and this is what gives it legitimacy. Apparently, Lego is issuing copyright strikes on YouTube videos that cover this. Apparently, a YouTube user by the name of Nintendo Prime posted on Twitter that their video on this exact subject has been copyright striked. Yes, they posted a screenshot and everything, and it says that the strike has been issued by Lego for, under content used, it says confidential unreleased novelty Lego sets. You know what? Here's the thing, okay? I understand that this stuff is severely under confidentiality. You know, there's a lot of NDAs and shit that go under this stuff. But here's the thing. If something leaks, don't issue copyright strikes, because that just gives it more legitimacy. It looks like you're trying to hide shit. And it seems a lot of other YouTubers that have covered this have had their videos copyright strike. Now, in order to prevent this, I'm not going to show you any footage of these Lego sets. Nothing. I'm not going to show you anything, because if I show you that stuff, most likely this video is going to be taken down. I understand why Lego is kind of freaking out over this stuff, but at the same time, when you freak out, you basically just outright confirm it. You know, because this has happened in gaming numerous times. Something gets leaked, and the company freaks out and tries to remove all footage and photos of whatever game or project they're putting out. And it's like you've just confirmed it just by reacting that way. It's like, hey, these people. Anyway, with that being said, let's move on to our next story. All right, and for our last story, we've got two major events coming up. Now, I didn't know which one to cover, so I said, fuck it, let's talk about both. All right, so first up, we've got Pokemon. They've officially announced that there will be the next Pokemon Presents will be on February 27th at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is 9 a.m. Eastern. And February 27th, by the way, is also Pokemon Day, which is the day Pokemon Red and Green officially launched in Japan. So, yeah, now they'll be announcing quite some stuff. My guess is that they'll probably be announcing like some DLC for Violet and Scarlet, possibly some new games that aren't like, the next generation, like spin-offs and such. So who knows? Anyway, next up, we've got to talk about Sony because they've announced their next State of Play event, and it will take place tomorrow on February 23rd at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Now, they have given us a heads up as to what's going to be announced, including 5 new PSVR 2 titles from partners, hot indie and third-party reveals, and an extended look at Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And yeah, that's basically it. It's actually been a while since they did the last State of Play, which was back in September. So who knows what they're going to be announcing at this point. Honestly, though, whenever stuff like this goes on, and the same thing goes with Nintendo Direct, I'll tell you the same thing I always do, and that is go in with as little expectations as humanly possible, because if you don't, you are going to be so disappointed that whatever the hell you wanted to be announced will not be announced. So that's my best advice. But anyway, until then, we're just going to have to wait and see what exactly they have in store for everyone. Anyway, guys, I'm going to take a short break. We'll be right back after this.
Pickle brain. Monkey breath. Mom can't say anything because I'm not touching. Doofus.
What if you could change anything you wanted?
I love you, little bro.
You can in Lego Island, the new CD-ROM game. It's an entire Lego world where you chase a Lego villain, build and race Lego vehicles, and change everything from the landscape to people's attitudes.
You're the coolest brother.
Even the music. The new Lego Island CD-ROM game. Lego Island CD-ROM game comes with everything shown here.
Alright folks, and that's it for this week. I want to thank you all for listening. Remember, if you like any of the music in this week's episode, links are in the description. There is also a playlist of past music called Single Player Radio, so check that out. And with that being said, I'll see you next week, and remember to keep gaming.